So I'm autistic, but I was also recently diagnosed with ADHD. And when I was diagnosed, I found out that actually around 3 in 10 autistic people would also meet the diagnostic criteria for ADHD. So that leads to the question, what is the relationship between autism and ADHD? So in your experience as a clinician, Dimitrios, what would you say that is?
Well, I would say there are many similarities. They're both seen as problems of neurodevelopment or differences in neurodevelopment. They both present early in childhood and tend to be sort of lifelong conditions or differences. I agree that there is a lot of coexistence of autism and ADHD. And in fact, some studies have shown that it's even more common than we think. Some studies have shown that up to 50% have a presentation that is very similar to those people with ADHD. Conversely, about a quarter of children and adults with ADHD have symptoms that we see in autism. Although we know that both conditions can occur together, much more commonly than other conditions, we don't know exactly the reasons for that. There may be some common origin, there may be some fundamental core similarities. An example of that would be the way autistic people and people with ADHD handle attention. So in both cases, the way people manage their attention, or sometimes the attention manages them, is very different than the population without ADHD or autism. So yes, very, very common to coexist. We don't know why.
And it can sometimes feel like living as an autistic person who also has ADHD is a little bit of a paradox in that I know that I feel more settled and happy when I'm living in a routine, but if I live in a routine for more than a couple of days, I get really bored and really restless and I need to switch it up. Molly, would you say that that's a similar experience to you? How is it for you?
Definitely. For me, I know that, when it comes to routine, I thrive on having a good routine, and I know that I can wake up in the morning and know what I'm doing. When I don't, it's almost like I feel like chaos, and it's like I need routine, but I also like it. My ADHD is like, I don't want routine, I'm so bored. And then when I don't have it, my autism is just like, I need it, no, give me it. And then it's like a internal conflict, and it's really hard sometimes to just put it together and just try to cope. It's crazy, it's messy. That's all I can really explain it as. It's messy sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I find that I actually manage to overstimulate myself with my ADHD. So I'm a talker and I'll go out and I'll talk and talk and talk, and then I'll be really overstimulated. And is there any sort of crossover, where they hit against each other or work nicely together that you've experienced?
Socially, for me. So when it comes to going out socially, there's my personality that I feel like is definitely defined by my ADHD, I feel like that's very defined. And I just want to go have fun. I have this child that just wants to go out and just go crazy. But there's another side of me that's just so scared because I don't know where I fit in. I don't know, if it's is that acceptable? Can I do that or that? Is that nasty? Is that out of place? Should I do that? So when I'm trying to be social, it's I'm either way too much or I'm reserving myself too much where people are just I don't really know what to say or do with you. And it makes me look like the odd one out because I'm doing it myself. So I can never find the balance of the happy medium because it's really difficult for me to do that. So it's just like a juggling act, and socially that's where I feel like I struggle the most.
Gosh, I can really relate to that. I actually also would say that the ADHD feels like the prominent driving thing for me, and it makes me really chatty and sociable, but because I'm autistic, I'm likely to handle that potentially in a way that kind of clashes.
Emotionally, I can say for me emotionally, I'm extremely empathetic, and obviously a lot of people think that autistic people are not. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I'm hypersensitive sometimes. Rejection and criticism is very hard for me to take, and I feel like that's the middle of both of them. But I seem to absorb other people's feelings and emotion, and I feel like with my ADHD sometimes I can be a bit blasé and a bit almost ruthless, very reckless with not only my feelings but other people's, and I can kind of brush theirs off and be it's not my feelings, I don't care. But I feel like my autism is the one that makes me extremely aware of other people's emotion, and it just sucks me in. And I feel like that, again, that's something that I really struggle with, along with trying to read people's emotions. It's like a dictionary. I would never read it. I don't know how. It's just so many things, and I just feel like are you being blunt? Like, or have I upset you?
I'm just relating hard to everything that you're saying. And do you think that rejection sensitivity that's so common in people with ADHD can be really triggered by feeling that you need to mask and social issues that we have as autistic people?
Oh my God, yeah. Yes. I mean, I feel like growing up, I've always wanted to be the popular girl, the one that everyone liked. But it's never been that easy for me. I've always had to like pretend I'm somebody else, and I like copy and paste other people's identity because it's like I should be like that because then people will like me. But because I'm so fake with it, people just know that I'm faking it. It just again makes me look like, what are you doing, Molly? Like, why are you being like that? But I try my hardest, and it's like everything I do is just not the right thing. And I feel that rejection, and that's why like I'll openly admit like I don't have any friends because maintaining a friendship is very, very difficult because of rejection sensitivity. If someone goes out with another friend, for me that's like, you don't like me anymore. And it causes arguments between me and that said person. And it's very difficult for me to accept that people do have other lives, you know, people are allowed to be like, I don't want to go out with you today, but that's not necessarily they don't like me. It's just a way of having a friend. It's, yeah, crazy.
I think, gosh, yeah, I haven't spoken to another autistic ADHD before, and I'm just like, yes, absolutely. Okay, so it's a little bit of a paradox that when you're learning about having autism, you learn a bunch of strategies that might support you as an autistic person. And when you learn about having ADHD, similarly, you learn a bunch of strategies. And as someone with both conditions, often those things don't really work. And another challenge I would say while I'm mentioning that is the kind of medication issue with ADHD, but autistic people often being extremely sensitive to medication and so it being hard to find a medication that works. Can you give me some advice on how to run my life as someone who has both conditions?
I think we have to try and see the greater picture. For example, people with autism sometimes autistic people may place intense focus on details, and they are known to be particularly perfectionistic when it comes to their work or interests or hobbies. But that may result in spending so much time on what they're doing and missing the greater picture, so that the project never finishes or it's not perfect enough. On the other hand, ADHD can cause these lapses of attention, and people can get easily distracted, and work that they're not immediately and strongly interested in becomes really, really difficult. So if we focus on the greater picture, which is executive skills management, for example, time management, what do as a person with autism and ADHD need to do to make sure I can complete my work on time? So for one person would be to avoid distractions, maybe take my ADHD medication, stay focused. For the person with autism, it would be a hard decision not to go into detail or to stick to the time limits or have someone I trust to tell me, look, you're focusing so much on that, you're missing the wider picture.
And I wonder whether it might be useful for Molly and I to talk about some of the things that we have found have helped us personally in case that would help the people watching. So for example, the way that I've overcome the routine/boredom issue is that rather than having set routines, I have rhythms. So I have a sequence of events. For example, in the morning, I exercise, I make a particular drink, and then I fill out my to-do list. And I have rhythms that I can kind of change where I put them in the day. And I also might tweak small aspects of that. So I might change the drink within that rhythm, just to give it something new, to give me that dopamine hit that's going to keep me motivated and moving forward. Are there any sort of strategies that you've found that have helped you with the paradox of the dual diagnosis?
ADHD medication for me does help a lot. So where I've chosen to be medicated, that does definitely kind of suppress my ADHD. It doesn't get rid of it, but it does give me more time to focus on my interests, for example, which is creating content and YouTube, and I'm very lucky that I can do that. So I don't really have a strict routine, but when it's changed without my consent and I don't change it and I feel like out of control, now that is something that I'm working on. You know, like when appointments are cancelled, I work myself up to go to that appointment, and I'll think, right, if something goes wrong, I can get out of the door that way, then I know where this is and I can sort things out and I can script what I'm going to say to the dentist, for example. Mm-hmm. I know what I'm going to say, I know what I'm going to do, and my day is going to go fine. If that's cancelled, I'm like, what am I going to do? And it's like the whole day I'm just like, and it's very difficult for me to adjust. My dog Woody is something that I use as I'm in control again, I'm going out for a walk, I choose to go out to try and feel in control again.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying, again, totally, except for that in this scenario, I'm the mum of 3 children and wife, and so when I go down, I do feel like I'm carrying this emotional responsibility for the whole house, in that if I'm struggling, everyone's struggling. And like you said, it's like kind of trying lots of different things and running with anything that does work, and it might not work for long, but keeping going.
You've got to keep rolling.
And I would also definitely second medication is not for everyone, and I'm certainly not advocating that everyone should take medication. But for me, having had that autism diagnosis for 5 years and not knowing that I have ADHD, I was using the autism strategies, but it was never quite working. And then when I started on medication, I remember I had just received a delivery of something that I wanted to make work. And pre-ADHD meds, when it started to be stressful, I'd have just kept going until I was yelling at everyone and throwing it around the room. And I remember thinking, I should put this to one side and I should go and sit and take some time to calm down. And it was like I was watching myself from outside, like, this is weird. This isn't usual for me. Okay, so it's kind of given me that, like, ability to go, how do I want to handle this? So Dimitrios, obviously we're both very much speaking about the same things. Is it your experience that when someone is treated for their ADHD, whether that's with medication or with coaching or strategies, it makes it easier for them to then manage their autism?
Yes, in most cases, especially when there is almost an equal degree of autism-related and ADHD-related difficulties. Sometimes as well the treatment, so-called treatment, or let's say the alleviation of the difficulties of ADHD temporarily with medicines, uncovers problems with autistic traits that have been ignored for a long time.
Yeah, that's what happened to me, that one.
But generally, we know that medication can be helpful for some activities of people with ADHD, and although not helpful for everybody, and many people try them and they say, yes, it helps me sit down on a desk and study, but I don't need to do that anymore in my life. I'd rather not take it, and that's absolutely fine. I think with adults, there has to be a discussion what would be the benefit. And obviously, there has to be an opportunity for people to try them in a safe and reliable manner, timely manner, which is, I think, what is a bit difficult these days to have the access to the professionals that they can help you try medication for ADHD, slowly evaluate whether they work and if what they do is helpful in my life in general. And if you had a reasonable trial and they're not for you for one way or another, then you abandon that and you look for other strategies that combined all together can help as much.
So I kind of feel like we're actually really early on in the conversation about how do autism and ADHD present together and how do we best support this demographic, right? So I think right now, honestly, the best place for information about the two conditions tends to be advocates like Molly and like myself, who have channels where we're speaking about our experiences and sharing the things that we're learning and networking that information in that way. So I would say to anyone looking to find out more about this, find advocates online who have both diagnoses and follow them and watch their journey and see if that's helpful.
I totally agree. It's absolutely very, very useful for people to look at these resources, and hopefully that will give the signal to the scientific community to come up with some more concrete answers and help. Because not so long ago, it was such the classification system that if you had autism, any ADHD symptoms would be dismissed as part and parcel of autism. So you wouldn't even get the additional diagnosis. So, we still need to do a lot of work.
I'm excited to see what happens. So let's have a little think about strengths of having both conditions. For me personally, I feel like a strength that I have is the ability to explain and articulate my experience as an autistic person, or in fact any other experiences that I have as a human, because of my ADHD, because my brain is working so fast that when I have an idea, I'm able to figure out exactly how to say it in a way that other people can understand really quickly. Would you say you have that?
Definitely. Have you watched The Good Doctor?
Yeah.
Like when he maps everything in his head? That is literally how I feel. So like you say, the fast thinking, I'm always like 10 steps ahead. So for me, that's probably the only positive, that I can really say that I've found at the moment from having both is that I do definitely have like a good sense of like what I want, and I can definitely like focus on and see things. But again, I struggled to find a lot of positives, but I'm still very early on in my like autistic diagnosis, so I'm yet to really fully understand what is my autism and what is my ADHD. So I'm just early on, really.
I think also, I mean, because obviously you're quite a lot younger than me, and so I've been doing this living thing for quite a long time, and I've also had the autism diagnosis for longer. And I think a big part of my journey as an autistic person was moving away from that feeling of I'm too much and people don't like me and I'll never be different and that means I'm always going to struggle, into a place where I'm like, actually being this much is actually awesome. There are people who appreciate it. There are places where who I am is welcome, and I've been able to kind of own myself a little bit more, and I do feel empowered by that, and that makes me feel more positive because I feel like it's my ADHD that makes me, if this doesn't sound too arrogant, a really fun, interesting person to be around. But it's going from that journey of most autistic people carrying that trauma of I'm too much, I'm not good enough, to be able to feel that positively about your ADHD, I think.
So I think, learning to accept who I am. And I think because I went like 21 years not knowing that I had ADHD, then 23 years not knowing that I had autism, I think there's a lot of trauma unresolved that I need to work on myself. And then hopefully I really do feel like maybe I can work on, like you say, going on that journey to empowering myself and thinking, actually, I'm me, and that's good enough.
So I think that's really great. I think it's like, it's not toxic positivity like you have to feel positive. It's more like there is hope that in the future, with the work that you can do, that you'll genuinely feel better about yourself.
And I feel like everyone has their kind of ways of coping, and I really like that people can see the positives, and I'm kind of envious actually that some people can. And so when I'm online, I do try my hardest to make content that isn't negative or like talking about the complexities. But because I'm so on this journey at the moment where actually all I've really known is the bad side of both, it comes across in my content that I'm only saying like, it's bad. But I feel like we have to educate people on the sex. It affects the sex, your sex life, your friendships. There's so many things that are taboo that you don't talk about. Actually, I needed someone to tell me. I needed someone to make me feel like that's normal. It's a journey, and I feel like that journey will come when you're not pushed.
Because actually, one thing we have not talked about as part of this video, which is actually so relevant, is the link between sort of ADHD compulsions and negative coping strategies like smoking, like drinking, like that then become part of an autistic routine. So I've just recently managed to give up smoking after really trying for a really long time, and I found it was the combo of the ADHD, I have an emotion, must fix it, and this is now what I do, so I can't possibly change that from the autism. So to finish off, how would you sort of say where you're at now, where you want to be, and why you're doing what you're doing?
So I want to be the friend that I never had growing up. So I want to give that little Molly a voice, the one that was constantly trapped in a body she didn't understand, the one that, was made to feel dumb, stupid, the one that was made to feel like you're not good enough to be in my friendship group. I want to give her a voice because I feel like that is a very important part of my life. It's very hard and I struggle massively, but I feel like giving her that voice is hopefully, going to give so many more people hope that yes, you are struggling, but if we work together, hopefully our voices can be heard and the future could be a lot brighter for a lot of us because we'll feel more included, in society.
So if you found this video helpful, please like the video, consider subscribing to the channel, and check out the description box for more information.